Absolutely.
You know, and that's why people are scared to lend money, because they don't know what's going on out there, and they don't know where. Here's what former chairman of the Federal Reserve said in '05, February 11th, '05, quote, "There are really disturbing trends, huge imbalances, disequilibria, risk. Call them what you will. Altogether, the circumstances seem to me as dangerous and intractable as any I can remember." This is 2005, and I can remember quite a lot. I don't know whether change will come with a bang or a whimper, whether sooner or later, but as things stand, it is more likely than not that it will be a financial crisis rather than policy foresight that will force the change. This kind of, that's you.
That's where we
February
are.
'05. What you said then is happening.
I think that's a fair comment.
September, October 2008.
Right. Well, this crisis really began, of course, in 2007, and it's only revealed in its full immensity now in October of 2008.
There are people who say perhaps there ought to be another line of attack, which is to buy up the mortgages.
Well, I think that's part of it. I mentioned that this $700 billion program, the debate was largely around that subject. And there have been a number of proposals for how to go about this.
Right.
It's not easy, but that is the core of the $700 billion program.
To buy up mortgage securities. Those are the, you know how the discussion has gotten so they talk about toxic assets, and they're saying you'll buy up. You know.
Well, buying up the individual mortgages is probably not much of a problem. Those that are still individual mortgages held by banks, those are probably the better credits. The bad credits are all packaged in these so-called CDOs and CMOs where it's hard to extract individual mortgages. And that is a technical challenge that the Treasury is going to have to deal with in implementing the so-called bailout program. That is a very difficult technical problem. There are two things involved here. One is getting the mortgage market more liquid and getting some of the toxic way. The other is dealing with the
toxic
homeowner.
Stuff out of the system.
Yeah, but we've got to deal with the homeowners, those that have mortgages they can't handle, not just the speculators, but the people who thought they were doing the right thing and building or owning a house and buying a house, and they got put in over their heads. And dealing with that on a mortgagor by mortgagor basis is a formidable challenge.
And impossible?
Well, I don't think it's impossible, but that's, you know, various proposals have been made for easing it. I got a proposal the other day from a thoughtful guy who had an idea that if we marshaled the judicial power in the United States, it's kind of using the judges as arbitrators and mediators, we could get after this. Maybe that's a good idea, but some way you've got to get through this. The mortgagor, I think, has to take some initiative, and then somehow you've got to deal with the trustee that is responsible for all these packages of mortgages, and he has to have the ability to negotiate. That may take a change in the law. I'm not sure there's controversy about this, but you have to be empowered. The trustee has to be empowered to make the deal.
Take a look at this. You saw a conversation I did with Warren Buffett. Take a look at this. Here it is. Roll tape.
I don't think it would be crazy to have a model or an entity model on the Reconstruction Finance Corp. That goes back to 1932, although it was really implemented in '33 under Jesse Jones. And it invested in mostly banks initially, and preferred stock and that sort of thing. So there are two things needed in the system. The one that's needed overwhelmingly is liquidity. I mean, when people are trying to deleverage, there has to be somebody there to buy, and they don't have to buy it at fancy prices, but to buy. And then there's also a capital problem with some of the institutions. We have provided capital here with a couple of institutions recently. The federal government did that in the '30s through the RFC, and I think there could well be a proper role for government in that.
He, in substance, is saying the same thing I'm trying to say, probably less articulately. I think it is unfortunate that in developing the $700 billion program, which can do both of the things that he is talking about, there wasn't more of an institutional structure Now, that takes time, but it doesn't have to take a lot of time, that you have a little separate instrumentality, which was what the RFC was.
Right.
And then Jesse Jones went in there and ran it, and he had his own staff, and they largely put preferred stock in the banks, which is one thing that we have the capacity of doing now. And it's going to be done directly by the Treasury under the existing law. And it also has the capacity to use that $700 billion for helping to liquefy the mortgage market. And I think the emphasis is moving more toward making sure you can adequately capitalize the banks and less toward the direct purchase of mortgage.
I hear you, and I think that's true from my observation, people I talk to. I mean, in this rush to liquidity, people want to get their money out of institutions because they worry. They want liquidity. Where is all that money going? I mean, it's not all going to T-bills, is it?
Well,
a lot of it is. But
you get these situations where people don't trust their so-called counterparties, and so they sit on their money.
It's the next thing. It's the next thing to the mattress.
Yes, and they try to put it in government securities and the short term. They don't even like to put it in long-term government securities. They put it in very short-term government securities, and the interest rate is practically nothing. Some of them run into gold, but the point is there is a lack of trust. And let me go back, and this is the opportunity or the necessity. You've got to restore some sense of trust that the banks are able to meet their obligations. And that other, flowing out from that other financial institutions are able to meet their obligations. That, unfortunately, takes government support at this point. I hate this business where the government has to step in to protect the private market, but we're there. And let's do it.
Because there's a larger goal.
You know, there's a larger goal. We want to stabilize the economy. And let's get in there, get it done, and then we'll rebuild the financial system.
In January, with a new Congress